Maths always felt to me like it's just a foreign language completely. And to realise I could do it, I felt enlightened and empowered. I started to become a different person in every part of my life.
Have you ever been so convinced you were bad at something that you didn't even question it anymore? It wasn't just an insecurity, it was just your identity. Like, I'm not a math person, done, end of conversation. Well, this episode is about what happens when that story gets completely rewritten. Today, I'm talking to Sue Besant, and I need you to really let this next part sink in because it's gonna blow your mind. Sue was Joe Boaler's first ever student. Before Stanford, before growth mindset, Joe Boaler was a new teacher like so many of us have been, and her first real challenge was when Sue walked into her class. As a kid, Sue was a classic troublemaker who saw no future for herself in education, largely because the system kept literally telling her she was hopeless. But when she met Joe, everything changed. And when Sue learned that with the right support, she could actually learn math, the entire world opened up to her. And I'm not exaggerating. Finally, building confidence in math dominoed all the way up to her running her own sound engineering company all across Southeast Asia. I always say that overcoming math failure is the reason I started a band. So it's such a magical full circle twist that Sue's experience overcoming math also led her to a career in music. This was one of the most meaningful conversations I've had on the pod, and that's because I see myself in Sue's story. After believing for so long that I simply wasn't a math person, when my teacher showed me that I could do math, it really truly changed my life, just like Sue. And that's why I became a math teacher in the first place. That's why I started math therapy, to share stories like ours and show that overcoming math trauma really is the gateway to believing that we are capable of anything we can dream of. Now, this is the craziest plot twist. I actually got to hang out with Joe and Sue in Bali last year. And honestly, it was just so heartwarming to see them still connected after 40 plus years. And by the way, for this interview, Sue joined me from her home, which explains all the cute bird chirping you hear in the background. I know at some point during this convo, someone is going to pop into your mind that needs to hear this episode. So when that happens, pause and please send this to them. As always, you can text the podcast to let me know what you think of this app by hitting the link in the show notes for this episode. If you've ever felt written off, or if you teach kids who don't believe in themselves yet, or if you just need some proof right now, today, that anything is possible, this episode is for you. Your story is actually so fascinating, and it's not something we hear a lot because it's a story of someone who started off being told that they were never going to be good at math and who never felt good at math, who then met this incredible teacher who we all know now as Joe Boaler and whose life sort of changed as a result. So let's go back to the beginning of a bit of your math journey. Let me be specific. What was math like for you when you were in school? What was school like in general? Because I don't think this was just about math necessarily.
No, not at all. It was, school was a place that you were at until you were 16 and you could get out and get a job, really. For me and the friends around me, none of us were really doing very well at school. Whether it was a sort of cultural thing, social, working class London. Parents were supportive, but not nurturing, if you like. My parents were great, doing the best that they could with what they had, but really just were happy if you stayed in school, got there every day and then eventually got out and found a job. So for me, school was really boring. It was a place I had a lot of fun. I can't say I didn't have fun. So it was a lot of laughs and jokes and fun. I couldn't apply myself, and I don't think I was really trying, as in, there were the posh kids that worked and did well at school and were going to have great careers. And then there were us, the rest of us, who would mess around a lot. I was definitely a disruptive kid.
What were you up to? What were you doing?
Just being disruptive in class, tying shoelaces together, someone leaned back on a chair, pulling it a bit more, throwing things around, just being a pain in the arse, basically. I must have been a nightmare in classrooms. I was. And that's what you did. And honestly, if you sort of sat down with a book and started doing something, you'd be berated by your friends. What are you doing? That's not what we do. We're the kids that just have fun and really no thoughts of, what are you going to do in the future? Career, university, college. You just knew, get to 16 and find a job and start making money and living life. And we sort of thought that was par for the course for us. I don't know what you call it. We call it bunking off. I was truanting a lot. You know, it was so boring. We'd go to a park and just hang out and hide away somewhere.
So bunking off is like skipping class.
Bunking off is like skipping class.
Okay,
yeah.
I just wanted to clarify. Okay.
Yeah, so we'd be doing that a few days a week as well, really doing nothing and just being there to sit through whatever these teachers would tell us. You could ask questions, but it'd be like, just follow the books, follow the rules. And if you were disruptive, or now what I'd say is you needed to learn in a different way, you'd be put in the bottom of every class where it was really the kids that they've given up on. So, you're in group 4.
And what did that mean? Yeah, what's group 4? What happens in there?
Not a lot. So group 4, I felt like, looking back on it now, would be, more likely to have a supply teacher in there, or maybe a junior teacher, or someone who just sat there and babysat us and let us do what we were doing, more or less. Tried to keep control, keep you in your seat, but didn't really try and teach us much, just kept us there. Like we just need to stay in school. We have to be there, but we're not going to learn anything. So, and as a kid, you're like, this is great. This is perfect. We can just mess around and not do anything, because learning didn't make any sense to me, as in, I loved learning stuff like outside of that. If I'd work, with my brother, I was learning about sports and fitness and health, with my dad learning about his car and stuff like that. I loved learning, but I couldn't think of that as being school learning. That was books and numbers and things that made no sense to me. So that's sort of where I sat until I was 13, 14. That's when things really sort of changed in my life.
Okay, so before we get to the big plot twist, you were put in group 4 and all teachers were just kind of like, yeah, we just want you to stay in school, but like you have no kind of hope kind of thing. Do you think that affected like your self-esteem outside of school, or not really?
Absolutely. I mean, my home life was challenging. Don't know how much detail to go in there, but my mum was an alcoholic, and my mum and dad, although they lived together, did not get on well at all. And as I say, they were good parents. They did what they could for me, but their relationship was, I didn't want to be at home, let's say. I didn't want to be in that environment. I was definitely a scared kid. I didn't realize how scared I was. I still feel some of that now, but I was a real frightened child. I'd felt very insecure. So I was bringing all that to school. And then you come to school and you're told you're useless as well, pretty much, there's nothing we can do with you. So that you're put into bottom class in school, but you're around a group of other people that you feel like are either in the same situation or sometimes worse than you. So you sort of group together and you do put a front on. I definitely came across as a cocky, cheeky, confident kid, but I definitely wasn't that. I was anything but that.
So different than you now,
But yeah, I didn't have much self-esteem. I just felt like I felt like there was a spark in there that would come out sometimes when I found something that I loved doing. Like I knew that I loved music. I'd already started to play the drums in school, sports and music in primary school before I got into secondary school. It was all sports and music. And I moved towards sports because it was the one time where I felt like I was noticed. On a sports field. Sports day was my day. Forget the other 364. There's one day where someone's going to say to me, you did well. Otherwise, I'd never be hearing that.
Babe, that is so sad. I hate this. I'm really sorry. That sounds horrible.
The thing is, at the time, you just live it. And you don't realize it's not normal because you surround yourself with others that are sort of, similar to you. So I just look at others and think at least things are not as bad as that. And you put up a front. But I do think sports was a really big thing for me. My brother he was a professional weightlifter, and he moved me towards all of that. And it became my one strength. I always thought, whatever I can't do, this is something I can do. And music. I loved music. When I think I was at like 11 years old, my dad brought me this 4-track recorder before I knew anything about sound engineering. It was this massive unit that had 2 tape cassette things in it. I don't know if you ever used a cassette. Vanessa, but two tapes.
I've made my
And you
share of
could-
mixtapes. Don't you worry.
and you could record on one and then you could bounce it to the other one and had a little guitar. I couldn't play guitar very well. I can't still, but you'd put a little thing down and then you could bounce it over. And at the time, I never knew anything about sound engineering or that I'd ever be a future for me, but I knew that this thing was something I loved. So I knew I had this creative element, but I never linked all of that to school. And I just thought school is a place where you're just imprisoned in a place where no one believes in you and there's nowhere to go forwards. You just have to do it. It's part of life. And sometimes you'd be, the elders around your parents would just be like, yeah, just stick it out because that's what they did. So wasn't much positivity there apart from my friends.
Yeah. Well, and it's what's so beautiful what you said before. And I think it's so important to hear when you were like, I loved learning. Like I loved learning things, but that's not what I was doing at school, right? Like I wasn't like whatever they called learning at school was not the same as my experience of learning outside of school, which I loved, which is like, oof, like what are we doing in school, which is supposed to be a place of learning that turns it into this icky thing, especially for a student like you who you're like, I want to learn things, but what I'm doing in school, it doesn't feel like learning. So, I mean, I just thought I think that's a really important point to note is that what do we mean when we say teaching and what do we mean when we say learning?
The other thing that I'm thinking of now is the difference between, okay, there's learning. We don't all learn the same way. It's not easy. It's 40 years ago. It's not easy in a classroom of, I don't know, it'd be 20, 30 kids to say, you need this and you need that. But the thing then was not asking questions. And I don't know how much schooling has changed, but it was questioning. That's what you couldn't do. So if I had shown some interest but said, but why? Or why is it like that? Or why are we learning that? You don't ask those questions. And I don't know if teaching, I hope it isn't that way anymore. It would be just follow what you're being given. And that was another big thing that if I did ever sort of think, oh, that's might be interesting, but why? Or what's that for? That was shut down. So I think that's quite a big thing as well, because maybe there would have been that moment. So anyway, yes.
Well, no, and it's really important to acknowledge because, yes, I would also like to say I hope teaching isn't like that now, but I know a lot of students who still experience that, that it's not completely gone. And also it's so crazy to think that like, obviously, if you're learning something, the number one question you're going to ask is why? Like that's a sign that the student in front of you is interested. Like, it's like, what, like that would be as a teacher. Yeah, it's maybe disrupting what your sentence or what you're doing, but that's a gift that the student has asked you why. They want to know something. Like you've got somebody in front of you ready to learn. So I think it's so nuts that we have traditionally and historically gotten annoyed by that question. I mean, I always got told I asked too many questions and all sorts of things, but it is really funny in retrospect to be like, but why? But seriously, but why? Why would we be annoyed at a question? Anyways, Carry on. Okay,
So I was, 13, 14. A new group of teachers came into the school and Joe Boaler was one of them. And another teacher that was really important to me at that time, Jackie Tomlin, is my English teacher. So I ended up being lucky that they're two very important subjects. It wasn't woodwork and home economics. It was two important, useful subjects. These young teachers come along. They didn't seem young to us at the time when you're 14, early 20s. They were 22, 23. It still seems old, right? And they're a teacher.
Sure.
But something, I wish I could remember those exact moments. That's why I sort of wish that social media was as it was now. I'm not a big fan of social media.
You don't wish that, I promise you.
I wish it could have been documented, some of those moments,
Yeah.
But memory is a great thing too. These teachers came into our lives. It's not only me. A lot of people are affected by them. And I would have gone into a math class and been my normal self and, troublesome and in the bottom group. And Joe was teaching the bottom group. And there's something that she remembers I actually don't remember me saying, why should we bother? But just having a younger energy in a room already, I know would have changed things. Someone that's young and, ready to, I think it was both of their first teaching positions.
Yeah. Joe said your class was like the first class she ever taught.
So she's got this group of unruly kids. But we were fun. At least we were fun. We had personality. And, I ask questions, as I just talked about, why should we bother? What's the point of it? And I'll say that of many, probably of all the subjects, maths was the one where I'm like, what on earth are we doing here? When is this going to be useful to me in life? When am I ever going to apply this any other time? What are all these? It's just a means to an end to get a pass if you're going to be a doctor or a surgeon or some career that I thought, otherwise, what do we need it for? It didn't make any sense to me. And I genuinely thought, there's no way I can learn this. My brain cannot do this stuff. This is for, again, the posh kids, those middle class kids that came in, sat down, did their work. It's not us. What for? So I asked the question, why should we bother? And, there would have been a response. Suddenly someone's actually saying, well, this is why you should bother. And there's an answer. And I think from there,
Do you remember what they said?
things
Like why you should bother?
I can't remember what I think it would have been. And what I remember, something I do remember where this happened in that timeline, is it might have been fractions or something like that. And me saying, look, how can you even learn this? How do you even start to understand it? And Joe being able to say, take another situation, another format, something a bit more real world. What I would get would make sense to me. One example. Okay, can you figure this out? Put something to me. And of course I can, because this makes total sense to me. I can divide that. And yeah, I can. It's about things that I know. And then saying that's fractions. Firstly, someone taking the time out to bother doing that. Secondly, understanding that all these numbers on a page can actually be applied in such different ways to something that makes sense to me. And it's a life changer. It's a discovery of, I can do this. Moments like that of being shown something and saying that cannot be the same as what you're trying to explain to me here. And then finding that self-worth, that realization that maybe I can actually do it. And that would have been a trickle of more and more of those things. And once I started to realize I can learn, it's just absolutely amazing, unbelievable feeling of, wow, I can do it. And at that time, just to mention something else, you surround yourself with people that are in your situation. So I'm in this bottom group with some friends that I'm having to transition from, because it didn't look good to be learning. You're like, why are you becoming a goodie? Why are you becoming, what are you doing? This is not what we do. So I'd also started to transition my group of friends to other friends to be able to still do it, because I thought, I can't keep my old friends while we all just mess about, and start being this person who learns. So all this change was happening in my life. And I was also struggling with my sexuality at the time, and my English teacher happened to be coming out at that time, something you could not do 40 years ago in school. So I ended up with these two young, new, fresh teachers with new ideas that are creative. Maths always felt to me like it's just a foreign language completely. And to realize I could do it, I felt enlightened and empowered. And I started to become a different person in every part of my life. For someone to say, you can do this, and I believe in you, and it's possible. I mean, that started something. And these teachers, these people are taking the extra time out of school time, because I needed the extra time to be able to now the goal is now I can learn. How am I going to pass these subjects? Because what was being explained to me by Joe and Jackie, my other teacher, is, you need your basics. Now you can learn. What's the future? What can you do? Hang on a minute. Maybe I can do more. Okay, well, let's get a pass. So that was the journey of someone believing in me and giving a shit and making that time for me and showing me that it was possible, just by showing me how to learn something in a different way, in a creative way. And I definitely, that was my way. That's what worked for me.
I'm like feeling so emotional. It's funny because I think you've probably told me some version of this like 4 times because I make you tell everyone every time I introduce you to someone. But it's such an incredible story. And what's so crazy is it's 40 years later and there's still so much emotion when you talk about it. Like I know people can't see you right now, but I'm looking at you and I can just see, that it's that transformative that it's funny that you're saying, you're like, I can't remember the exact thing, but what I'm hearing and seeing is you can remember that feeling. Like that feeling sticks with you forever. And that's why I always say, I love teaching math, but it's not about the math for me. It's that math can be a gateway into opening up these feelings because math is where so many students feel exactly like you said. This is the one thing I promise you I cannot learn. My brain is not designed for this. This is for the smart people and I'm not one of them. And when you change that, it's like that feeling sticks with you. And you just said, you were like, I started transforming into a new person in so many different ways. And one other thing I want to highlight is that I think sometimes we think like to help a student that's struggling as much as you were, and that's checked out as much as you were, you've got to do some big grandiose gesture. And what I'm hearing from you is Joe and Jackie, yes, they were creative in the sense that they were teaching their subjects in a creative way. But what you've said more than that, the thing that I don't know, like that I'm clocking you repeat is they believed in me. They told me they believed in me and then they showed up and spent extra time with me. And it's like that action, that doesn't go unnoticed. Like you were 13, 14, but you noticed that. You clocked, wow, this person is taking time to talk to me and to explain stuff to me. That must mean they believe in me. And then they're vocalizing that they believe in me. So to never underestimate how that gesture, and it's something you can say in 2 minutes, I believe in you. It's something you can take 5 minutes to spend time with a student because you don't think they're a write-off. That pays off. Like, just as much as, if not more, than the actual way you're teaching the content. Because now you're in the game because you're like, oh, okay, well, now I'm paying attention, I guess, right? And now the delivery of the content can be absorbed, whatever that delivery is. And thankfully, in this case, it was creatively the way you needed it. But it's so cool. And what's fascinating is because I know what happens next, but you're now at this point where you're sort of transforming and you're feeling like you kind of have to like caterpillar into butterfly out of your friend group, right? You're like, okay, like my whole identity is changing. I no longer want to kind of, bunk about. What did you say?
Bunk off.
Bunk off.
No, the opposite. I spent all my hours at school. And again, when home life is a challenge,
right?
Now I found a new place to be and imagine that that's the place I'm at. I couldn't wait to get back there and learn more and take more in. Once I got a taste of it, and up to this podcast, I really started to sort of sit down and have a real think of what do I remember? I was trying to find memories. I sort of went through my 20s and my 30s, maybe not looking back as much. I did appreciate the help and what I'd been given, but I didn't understand the scale of it, I think, until I was in my 40s, how big this is, how big it was in life, not just maths or English, or it changed my entire life and it gave me the confidence to do everything else I did from there on.
I talk a lot about students with math trauma and, all the ways that can develop. And one of the ways is simply having it made so clear to you in so many ways that nobody believes in you, right? That you shouldn't even bother. We just want you to pass. You were given those messages when you were put into the lower sections of your class. You were given those messages by teachers that were just like, well, just pass. You were given that messages even by well-meaning parents that were like, don't worry about it. You just need to get through it and get out of here. That's all you're capable of.
Yeah, not pass. The pass bit wasn't included, just to mention. Not pass. Oh. Just stay to school until the end of school. Don't get arrested. Forget pass. If you're in group 4, you're not passing. And there was an incident where one of my teachers went to the head of the department and said, I want to bring someone up from group 4. I think they can pass. And the head of maths asked who it was. And when my name was mentioned, he just thought it was hilarious. Genuinely thought that was a hilarious thought. Like, he definitely thought there was no way in the world I could ever pass. And I did. But there you go. If that's what younger teachers, new teachers are getting from it. And it wasn't just like he was like, I can't be bothered. He was like, really thought there was no opportunity for me.
Yeah,
it was a waste of time. And if your teacher feels that way, imagine that energy you're getting constantly.
Well, exactly. Well, and that's it. And I was going to say, you probably like, because you're saying, well, it took me until I was around 40 to even basically unpack what this whole experience had done for me. A kid who's like, 11, 12, whatever, younger, or like even a bit older, you're not thinking, oh, because this teacher did this thing, my self-esteem has become lower because I'm getting this message. None of that is happening consciously, right? It's just a vibe you're getting, an energy you're getting that trickles down, and you just shrink smaller and smaller and smaller and don't try and don't want to show up. And conversely, for all the teachers who are making these huge differences in students' lives, they might not even know it right away, right? But it does over time play out in the sense of like, oh my God, what has led me to be the person I've become? Like that's why it's so great to have you on the podcast and be able to talk it out. Most of us don't even reflect on what has caused us to be the way we are, right? That's what like deep therapy is for. So certainly most people aren't thinking of that about their math experience, but it's there and it's so important and it's so salient and it's like so impactful. So anyway, so you get to this point, you're passing, you're on your way up. What happens next? Because I really want everyone to know what you ended up doing with your crazy life after this.
Don't big it up too much.
It's so cool, though. You're so cool. But I also want to know what you thought you were going to do before this. Like, what was your plan?
Honestly, sports, as I say, I thought it was my one strength. I didn't know what that would mean because I knew, well, sports, what does that mean? I'm not going to be able to become a PE teacher or work in an environment without having some qualifications. But I kind of didn't know what I'd do with it. Honestly, I think at 13, 14, I wasn't thinking career at all.
Yeah.
I was thinking, what jobs are going to be out there? What are my friends doing? What are they getting when they're leaving school? Okay. And I have many friends that ended up working at, a family business or the local supermarket, or that, not there's anything wrong with that.
No.
That was their trajectory. That's all that was there for them. That's all that they felt, So I don't think I knew what I'd do, but I knew I loved music and sports. So luckily for me, there's a lot of luck in there, I think. A friend of a friend knew this training scheme that was for sound engineering. I was playing drums at the time. I was in this little band. And she said to me, if you don't know what you want to do, this is in music. I didn't know what sound engineer was. What does that even mean? If you don't know, you don't know. Engineering sound? Then... So she said, listen, if you're into music, you can play drums all day. They've got a recording studio. You can play drums. I thought, why not? And I went for an interview and I needed my maths and my English to get into that course. What are the chances? I at least needed those passes.
Deepak Chopra always says that luck, because you keep saying, oh, there's a lot of luck involved. And his definition of luck is when opportunity meets preparedness. Right? You're prepared and then the opportunity comes and you can take it because you have prepared. Like, just so you said, what are the chances you need English and math? Well, you've prepared and now the opportunity is there and you can seize it.
And it was scary, I'll be honest, but I was loving it. It was absolutely amazing. And I was there for 2 years. So now I'm in this school of audio engineering. And you learn theory of music and practical. And I was loving it. Like I was just absorbing all of this. Thought this is something I'd really love to do. How fun is that as well? You're on a course where you're just, you're a musician, David's a musician. Imagine just being in a recording studio and being told all day, just do this. Wow. And we got paid a little bit, just a little bit. But imagine that. That's insane. It's like, this is like a dream. So I'm in there. And then you're given a placement. They try and find you a studio to work in. And again, luck met preparedness. And I was put in this little tiny studio it was actually in Fleet Street, which is not somewhere you normally have recording studios. It's where all newspapers are produced over there. I was 17 then, and it was managed by 2 older guys, and they owned the business. And that's when my learning really, really happened. That's where I really grew in the industry. We were writing songs for people. They'd come in with an idea. And so I had to learn chord progressions and so on the keyboard because we wrote them all. It was all produced, not with a live band. So I started learning that and I picked that up real quick. I couldn't really read music well. And we just became thick as thieves, myself and Zar, who was my business partner. We grew in the business and went on to set up our own recording studio. So I was there for about 2.5 years. And then we went out on our own, moved to another part of London, Holloway, and set up a recording and rehearsal room of our own. We were luckily funded by the person who had the studio in Fleet Street. he saw something in us and gave us an opportunity to set up our own studio. And that's what we did. We had a 24-track studio.
Yeah.
We had rehearsal rooms. And 18 years old to have your own business of that kind, it actually wasn't overwhelming because we both felt totally ready for it. But it was, again, amazing. Absolutely amazing.
And how much math did you use in your job as a sound engineer, at the recording studio? Do you think you used a lot of math?
Well, I must have.
You can say no. I'm actually just curious.
I must have been using it without realizing. Of course, I'm not thinking, okay, well, when did hypotenuse come into the picture and when did? But I would have applied some of the learning, the way I learned in the studio work, and once we became computer-based, and timing and other things, I would have made use of it. I just don't think I was aware of it. I think what I thought at that point is it got me what I needed to get here, which it did. It got me one.
Which it did.
And I didn't understand the scale of it. And it got me here, as in now I felt like I could learn anything at that point.
Okay, let us just pause on that because it's interesting. I was asking a leading question. I was like, I'm going to actually ask her if she thinks she learns math, if she used math. And you kind of went to where what I was sort of thinking is, yeah, perhaps you didn't use the quadratic formula or Pythagorean theorem and the hypotenuse, but did you use the skills you learned in math class, right? Persevering to a problem, like figuring out another way of looking at it, like relating things to what you already know so you can learn the new thing. You kind of did, right? You went into this brand new space. You didn't know anything about sound engineering and you fucking figured it out. And what's even bigger is what you said, that you had the confidence that you could learn anything. And that's almost the biggest thing that you used.
Yeah. And with maths being the scariest, when you're at school, it's the scariest subject. It's the one of every class you want to go to, you do not want to go to maths. Please don't send me there.
Why?
Well, when I say it was boring, it wasn't boring. I just didn't get it. Because it's just numbers on a page and more numbers on another page and more numbers that you will not use in real life. Why do I need to know? Divide that by whatever. Who cares? I've got a calculator. I'll use that. It was really, I thought I was bored. Yeah, it was a foreign language. And if you can learn the most difficult thing that you thought was the most difficult thing, just by thinking of it in another way, to say, it opens the door. I did feel invincible. I probably felt too invincible. I thought that anything was possible, but then anything becomes possible. And me and my business partner, we're both really young. Everyone coming into the studio was always amazed that it was these two kids running this studio and applying yourself to all different things and being able to be flexible in that environment, as in the feeling you can learn anything. It really was anything and everything. From running a studio, running rehearsal rooms, working out because we had storage there. Okay, how does storage work? How do we and then you're making bacon sandwiches for them sometimes. We had a little kitchen, we'd make breakfast for them as well. All those things from A to Z, I never looked at anything and thought, well, I can't do that one. From everything, as complicated or simple as we had to be able to be multitasking, flexible, open-minded, and up for anything, and we were. And we problem solved constantly in that studio, whether it were on a financial level, on a level of how we wiring this. We wired up that studio ourselves. We completely built that studio ourselves. We put all the soundproofing paneling up. We put the carpet in. We painted the walls. And we did all of the wiring, even that small job. Well, this isn't working. Well, how can we do it? And I know that came from what was given to me when I was 14 to 16 years old. Really. And another thing to say, friends now that I meet from those days, all different walks of life, they still sort of think, well, you were special. There must have been something special about you.
Huh?
I wasn't.
Okay.
I wasn't special. I was ready for it. There was a kid sitting right next to me that could have done everything that I'd done if they'd have wanted to, but maybe just not quite ready, whether it's because of home life or whatever else has that block up of I'm resisting that at the moment. I'm not ready for it. But there's nothing special about me. I just had the right opportunities and the right people to be able to become what I became, to fulfill my potential.
We have the tendency to attribute our failures to ourselves. So if I fuck something up, I'm like, oh, it was my fault. But if something good happens to me, or if something good happens, like I'm successful at something, I'm more likely to attribute it to external circumstances. So I fuck something up, I'm like, that was my fault. I do something good and I'm like, oh, well, that's because it was easier. That's because I got this other person helped me. That's because, you know what I mean? Like, so in this case,
Yeah, I do that too.
yeah. Well, it's funny. You keep saying like, oh, I'm lucky. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
you also like you worked hard and you this and that, right?
Yeah.
So it is something I think we have to be aware of. And I think that's really interesting that you say your friends still will be like, oh, well, you're special.
And knowing them now as adults and even think of them, I think we talked about this before at some point, even thinking of them as kids now and knowing them as adults, like their potential. And not everybody, some people are happy with how things panned out in their lives. But I know a couple in particular that felt like there should have been more out there for them, but they just never found that lifeline. They never. And when I think of what they used to do, some of the ingenious ways they'd find to get around doing work, to get what they wanted, to get out of, they were so smart and so capable and so able, but couldn't find it in them. And when I look at that now, it kind of makes me a little bit sad because, and there's some of those people I did move away from because I saw that. So you're not going to be able to come along for the journey. I'd never tell that group of people that I was going back for extra work at school.
Yeah.
That's a no-no. And that's the other thing. If you're around a group of people where you don't feel like you can do that, are you really going to leave this lifeline, these people around you? Are you going to choose them or are you going to get torn between? And, I made that choice. I was able to. Everything was set up right for me to do that.
Yes. And this is also why I think we have to be very cognizant, especially we're talking about like teenagers or kids, right? There's a point where school shifts. Like, in elementary school is actually largely about education. When things get to grade 7 or 8, it becomes predominantly about the social. It's like where we find our social groups. It's like where we figure out who we are. It's very hard, especially in schools where like it kind of sounds like how you're describing your school a bit, but it's still like this at a lot of schools. It's also very gendered that like it's still not very cool to be smart if you're like in this type of school or that type of school. It's not that cool to like math if you're, want to be this type, whatever, all the American teen movies.
Your teacher's
pet. Yeah, exactly. Like we do have to be aware.
And I do think because I was coming out as well at the time, and having another teacher that was coming out at the time, and they were friends, these, Jackie and Joe were good friends, that all fed into it, because I also felt at the time, this group of friends, I'll never be able to be myself because I'll never be able to come out in front of these people. We were still telling homophobic jokes, and I'm telling them as well because I want to be part of this group. I'm saying things against knowing, I probably knew when I was 10 years old, I like girls, this is different, but I'll keep that under wraps because I'm hearing what my friends are saying. So that migration for me was definitely pushed on as well because I know I'm different and I won't be able to thrive with this group of people or ever be myself.
Yeah, learning and like being seen as a person. Like you weren't just like a number to them. You weren't a student. You were this whole person. They recognize that like, okay, A, people have never showed up for her. B, she's on this coming out journey. Like there's this going on. It sounds like Joe and Jackie really could see the whole picture of like who you were and what the situation was you were in and kind of target a bunch of those different things instead of just putting the paper down on the table, right? And as humans, we all want to be seen and understood and valued, right? So like just letting a student know that you care about them as a person can be a huge game changer. And you've really highlighted that. But we have not told, as we're going to need to wrap up soon, and still we have not told anyone that after your studio stuff, you moved to Indonesia and like took over sound engineering. Because I think people need to know what, like going from bunking off. Sorry, I'm obsessed with getting this right.
You've got
going
it.
from bunking off in the bullocks, from bunking off to bougie bish in Bali.
So
okay.
Initially, I moved over to Brunei. I worked for the royal family of Brunei.
The royal family, guys.
We were taking care of the concert venues for the royal family. So we were in the concert venues of the royal family. We were in the palaces.
Shut up.
No word of a lie. Yeah, so I did that for 2 years. And then I was homesick for the first 6 months. And then I just loved this part of the world. I didn't want to go home. I heard about a job in Bali. friend put me onto a job in Hard Rock Hotel Bali. They were just opening. They needed someone to head up audiovisual. They had all this state-of-the-art equipment and no one to run it. And went for an interview, got that job, was there for another 2 years, and then set up my own company in Bali, which I ran for about 20 years, renting equipment for events, sound and lighting and video equipment, and then just started really doing consultancy work myself throughout Southeast Asia for sound installations, for events, festivals, show directing. And Bali was right place, right time, where I'm meant to be. Because here, anything you could think of doing, you can do. Everyone around you is positive. And I love London, and I had lots of opportunity there, but not like being in this part of the world where everyone around me was an entrepreneur. Everyone around me was like, yeah, you can think it, you can do it. And this is where I really flourished.
Here's the crazy thing you just said that I don't even know if you realize what a full circle moment this is. You were like, it just suited me so much more here, where people are like, if you can think it, you can do it. Anything's possible. And the craziest thing is, when we go back to your math journey, what sparked in you that moment when you realized you could do math, this thing you've always been told you can't do, you started being like, oh my God, if I can do that, I can do anything. And now you're literally have ended up in a place where that is the ethos.
For that full circle. Very nice.
Do you like that? Do you like that? I thought that was
good.
Okay, I have to ask one more question before I do my wrap up. Be honest, okay? Be honest.
Okay, I'm going to be completely honest.
Because I actually have spent enough time with you that I think I know the answer. So if you lie to me,
always.
Do you think you like math now?
Okay, what does that even mean? Does that mean what I remember when I was 14 years old, or does that mean what math could be? I like solving problems. Can I say that?
She's beating me at my own fucking game.
I still don't like hypotenuse and the square root of. I still don't like any of that stuff. But I do like problem solving. It's a part of everything I am today. Maths is a part of everything I am today. That's as honest as answer as I can give.
It's so honest. And, I actually thought you were going to say no, only because anytime I'm around you and math comes up, you're always like, oh, math, you guys do this. But I
only say that because sometimes there's a simple thing and I'm like, there's an easier way of figuring that out, because I think I know everything. If I'm around maths people, I love a challenge, and I'm devil's advocate, and I'm still a pain in the arse. So I'm just waiting to see if there's something there. So there you go. We're using it all the time, every day. So how can I not love
you? You're such a sweetie, but also pain in the ass. It's so confusing. But and the thing is, I just want to say one quick thing, which is that even if your
David's
answer was
going,
no, which it was
is David doing this?
David is doing. He literally did that exactly that. He's got his head buried in a pillow because you did exactly what he was doing. Exactly.
I know the wrap up move.
We're gonna wrap up. I've got 2 final questions I have to ask, and you have 30 seconds to respond to each. Number 1, if you could change one thing about the way math was taught in schools, what would it be?
To be more creative.
Such a good answer. That took 2 seconds. That was incredible. Question number 2. Someone listens to this podcast, they're like, yeah, I get what she's saying. I guess, but that just couldn't happen to me. I'm just not a math person. What would you say?
Well, I'd say I'm the proof, right? It couldn't have been more of a turnaround. I'm absolutely the proof. And, everything that Jo Boaler teaches, of course, I've watched her career and her, the books and everything she's done. And it's all just makes total sense to me. And if you just have a look at that, what that research shows, it shows everything about, it's just being creative, teaching it a different way, having a bit of energy about it, getting off the paper so everyone can learn. If I can do it, anyone can do it. That I can say.
And actually, Jo Boaler does talk about Sue in her second latest book, Mathish. There's actually a whole section about you. Oh my God,
I'm honored. I'm honored.
I'm
honored. I'm honored to be on this podcast, and I'm honored. Even this is when I tell people I'm going to be on this podcast, and they're like, "Which one?" They think it's going to be to do with music or something else, and they say it's the Math Guru, and they're like, "What?" It's I'm honored to be here. The thought,
you're a legend.
The 13-year-old me would be here now. And really, I feel, very, very proud and very honored. And thank you for having me on.
Oh, it's honestly, I'm so glad we finally convinced you because this is such an inspiring story. I want everyone listening to know that if Sue could do it, you can too. You've got to find your person. You've got to find your way. But there are people out there. And you know what? If no one has told you what Joe told Sue, Sue and I believe in you. We believe in you. Whoever's listening, we believe in you for sure. We know you can do it. We know you can build a better relationship with math. We know you're able to do it. So we believe in you. Thank you for being here. This was so great.
Thank you.
I know we say all the time that all it takes is one teacher, like one person who believes in you to change your entire life. But Sue is living proof and a message for all of you listening that you must never underestimate the impact you're making by simply believing in someone. Sue and Joe are lucky to still be connected and to be able to share how much of an impact they had on one another. But the truth is, most people wander the earth like never knowing the difference they make in someone's life because no one ever tells them. And that's why I want you to share this episode with one person who impacted you, but who might not know it. Send it to them right now and say, hey, thank you. You were my Joe Boaler. I would not be who I am today without you. Life's honestly too short to not let people know that they matter. And you know what? I want to know too, like who was your Joe Boaler? Text the podcast by hitting the link in your podcast app, DM me on Instagram @themathguru, or email me at vanessa@themathguru.ca. Math Therapy is produced by David Kochberg. The music you're hearing right now is by our band Goodnight Sunrise, and I am your host, Vanessa Vicaria. Thank you so much for being here and for believing in someone who really needs it. And guess what? I believe in you, in your ability to change, to grow, and to make a positive impact in this world. You matter, and I believe in you.
Everyone around me was like, yeah, you can think it, you can do it. You know, I'd love to know.
Episode title. If you can think it, you can do it. Please write that down.
I think that's in a song as well. I'm trying to think which.
Who?
Anyway, I'll think about
what,
that.
I'll think about Beatles? That was just
Beatles.
such a...
Are you seriously saying the fucking Beatles? Don't you down the Beatles?
Look, I can't get into it right now with the Beatles. It's not that I don't like, I appreciate them. I think they've done great things for music. I'm just not
well
putting
done.
on the Beatles.
Oh, thanks.
I just, here's the thing.
I'm not down on them. They're okay. They did a pretty good job of changing
not my
music.
cup of tea.